Welcome back, guys. In this video, we are going to be moving through the first piece in a series of videos. And so what these next few videos are meant to do is outline for you a legitimate, usable content creation and SEO research process that you can deploy, whether it's for yourself, for your own business, for an employer, for a client, whatever it is pretty flexible and it works in pretty much any situation. It can be extended to pretty much any use case. Our team uses this in multiple niches to write blogs doing hundreds of thousands of traffic per month. So the process does work. You just need to get in and customize it for your own use case. And so again, this is going to be the first video in a series. This video is going to cover how we can actually pull the SEO research process into a tool like N8N. Works just as well with make.com. So whichever tool you choose to use is fine. From there, in the next video, we are going to walk through how you can take this research that we've done and use it in order to start writing content. Now, one thing I will say is the world doesn't get any better by just having kind of nonsense content spewed out on the internet by some AI automation. And so something really cool that we're going to teach you in that video is how to use the large language models to prompt you for your perspective on a topic. Now, that's pretty cool because it allows you to bring a unique spin, a unique point of view to the topic that you're going to write about, right? AI is best when it helps augment what we do. It's not meant to replace your need to think about something. And so again, what we're going to get into in this video specifically is that research side of things. There's going to be one or two main caveats to this, or assumptions, I should say. Number one is that you're using N8N. We're going to use N8N in this tutorial, though, again, it does work just as well for make.com. In fact, I use this first with make.com, so make works perfectly fine. And the second caveat is that you do know how to make a authenticated HTTP request out to a third-party API. I'm going to show you how to do it, but if you are completely lost on that side, it might slow you down a little bit. But we will have other videos that show you how to do that type of stuff. So that being said, let us just get into this. And so before we do that, I'm going to give you a tiny bit of context on why we created this system to begin with. So like I said, or shall I say, if you don't know about my background, I've owned several social media marketing agencies. I've also taught people how to run and scale those types of businesses themselves. Now, as part of that journey, when AI started getting really big, it became very clear that this was going to be an awesome way for us to start really structuring how we write articles and moving a lot faster with how we write articles in any niche that we operate in. And so that is where this specific process was born from. It was meant to automate serious pieces of manual work. And from there, it grew as the technology grew into doing more and more stuff. And so this is going to be a little section of these workflows again, and we're going to go through more stuff in later videos. So first things first, the tool that we are going to be using to really power all of this is a tool called DataForSEO. It's a pretty dope API service. So highly recommend if you're ever trying to do any sort of SEO oriented work. I haven't really found any that are a lot better. If you know of one that maybe performs some of these functions better, drop it as a comment and I'd love to check it out and maybe record a video on it. But highly recommend you check out the documentation if you're going to try to do this, because there is a lot more that you can do with this than what I am showing you. They have AI summarization features. They go into local. They have backlinking APIs, on-page SEO APIs, a lot of really cool stuff. This video is going to be just going through organic SERPs and keyword research. So keep an eye on that, docs.dataforseo.com. It is also a pretty cheap tool. I've written probably thousands of articles using this API, and it really does not cost that much money. So like I said, let's get into this thing. So first thing, I like to do a chat message received when I'm kind of doing tutorials for you guys. That being said, if you were going to do this, having a webhook in from a tool like Airtable is going to be your best bet. Again, I'm doing this just to show you what you can do. If you were going to actually roll this into a production system, you would want to push the data out to wherever your spreadsheet is that you manage, your content calendar and all that type of stuff. We're not going to do that right now because it's pretty straightforward. Again, if that's something that you really do want to see, let me know, and I can put a video together for that. It's pretty straightforward. So the first thing we're going to do is come in and we're going to put a message in here. And so for this context, this is going to assume that you at least have a target keyword that you do want to rank for, right? And so in this scenario, imagine we have a client or even our own business that's a landscaping company in Colorado. And as part of our strategy in ranking this site, we have a blog, right? We want to demonstrate topical authority with the search engines. And so we have a blog on the site where we write about things having to do with landscaping. And so we could come in here and say, for example, what plants or plants that grow in Colorado, right? So we could send that through to the system. And now what the system's going to do is it's going to go out. It's going to start gathering a bunch of SERP related data, right? Search engine result page data. And then from there, it's going to start doing a few things that structure it into a way that we can actually use it. And so while it's out doing all of that stuff, I'm going to walk you through what these nodes actually do. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these because it's not the point of the video. I'd rather focus more on like what we're doing with it as opposed to what exactly this thing is, okay? So the first thing that we want to do is just get the SERP data. And so I'm using this specific endpoint in the DataForSEO documentation. Again, if you want to know what those endpoints are, it tells you exactly where to make the requests. Their documentation is pretty good. So we're making a request, and then on our headers, we're doing this in every request. We're sending a basic authorization header. Okay, so we're coming through, we're adding parameters, adding headers, and then the content type is application JSON. And then as we come down, we are sending a body, right? We're sending what we want it to do keyword research for. We're sending that through to the system. And so that's what this is right here. And I am, by the way, going to provide you an actual JSON file that has all of these nodes configured so that you can just download them and use them. So you can look at that for that in the description on the video. Getting back to this. So basically we go out, we make this request, and boom, it starts outputting for us all of this data, and they structure it pretty nice. So if we wanted to come through and look at what we have, we come down and we have this results array right down here. Okay, we keep going down, and then we get to items. And once we get to items, it's going to start telling us what it found in the results. What are things that people also ask, which is really big from an SEO perspective. We don't just want what is that main keyword. We want what are other related keywords that people ask for that are, again, related to that. So if someone's searching for plants that grow in Colorado, well, what are the most common plants in Colorado? What is the easiest flower to grow in Colorado? What foods naturally grow in Colorado? Those are all relevant terms. And so we go through, we can see we have this giant payload request there. And then what we do is we come through, and this is what I like to do, just because I think it makes it easier in a lot of ways. We're using just a really basic field setting node inside of N8N where we can say, hey, I want you to set this specific field based on whatever schema you have. So in here, I'm saying, hey, I want to have this items field, and this is where you can go pull it from. So it can go through and it can go a few layers down inside of here, and it can pull off a specific node and then just map it in an output. So it makes it easier to grab it next time. Okay. From there, we go through and we have some custom JavaScript. Again, you're going to have access to all of this. The reason that I choose often to write custom JavaScript is because N8N isn't perfect, and sometimes, to be honest, it's a little bit confusing. And so what this node is doing is it's going through and it's pulling all of the titles that we had from our search result page, right? So when we made this request, it sent back, hey, here are all of the article titles that we see ranking. Here are all the questions people are asking, right? If we were to go in here and look at the people also ask node, we can see these are other questions that people are asking. So indoor plants that grow, outdoor plants that grow, perennial plants, native plants, low maintenance, year-round plants. What is the easiest flower to grow? Some of the things we went through earlier. And so again, don't let this scare you, I guess is the thing. I know this is like a video for really like beginners for the most part. Don't get afraid of the JavaScript stuff because you can just generate this in ChatGPT, to be honest. And that's what I did with some of this stuff. So that being said, we go through, we do those first two actions. Then we get here to our get keyword suggestions node. And all we're doing here is we're making another request, okay? So we're making a different request to a different endpoint. So the first endpoint was like, hey, just give me all of the search results that are there. Well, this one is saying, I want you to actually give me suggested keywords specifically based on our main search term, which was plants that grow in Colorado. And so it's going out and it is pulling all of the other searches that it can find, and we're giving it a depth of 20. So it's kind of like recursively going through things and trying to find out what are other suggested keywords that are related. And then we kind of just bump through this process of doing the same thing we did here, where we set the value of it so we can access it a little more easily. Then we run some code that aggregates all the data. Then we go out and we make another request to get related keywords, which is kind of different from suggested keywords. They're slightly different, and so different endpoint, right? So if we were to go in here, right, related keywords, different endpoint. So it's going through and it's pulling out keywords that it thinks are related. setting them to a variable, and then does it one last time with something called keywords for keywords. Okay, so just a different node. It's going out and doing all that stuff. Now, if you, again, want any more details on exactly what this all is doing, you can come out here and look at that stuff. So if we went to the keyword data API and looked at all of these different endpoints that they have, you're going to be able to see what exactly these things are doing. So keywords for keywords, for example, if we popped in here, we can see exactly how the requests are structured, other options that you have to send through if you want to do specific languages or whatever it might be. And basically what this, again, is doing is it's just providing you other keywords that it thinks are relevant is what this is doing. And so we go through, and just summarizing this because I know it's kind of ran through that a little quickly. We sent this message and said, hey, go do keyword research for plants that grow in Colorado. It goes out, it hits a few different endpoints, right? So 4 different requests that we make. And then at each of those requests, it's just aggregating the data that it gets. So it's saying, okay, writing keywords for keywords. It's saying, here's all the other keywords it found, right? Just pulled all these keywords. Just pulling keywords, pulling keywords, pulling keywords. Now, this is where we get to the point where there's some actual AI stuff in the mix. And again, what I will caveat is I simplified this a little bit because I simplified other steps, but the principle of what we're doing here, you can apply this to anything, really. And so if we open up this first node, let's look at what we are asking. So obviously we need to go through, I'm assuming you know how to configure an OpenAI node. If you don't, you just right click on the screen, go to add node, type in OpenAI chat model down here, OpenAI chat model, and you'll be able to come through and configure all this stuff that we're doing right now. And you need to connect your credentials, which we've done in other videos. And so what we're doing here is we're messaging the model. I'm going to pop this open because it looks a little nicer. And so, again, we're going to leverage now the AI's capacity for processing a lot of data and doing cool stuff with it, all right? And so the first thing that we are doing, we're kind of telling it what its persona is, right? SEO, keyword clustering expert. The reason we do keyword clustering, by the way, is to help us achieve topical authority on a subject. I received feedback in one of my past videos that you guys would prefer if I went into more detail on some of the marketing stuff for people that don't have a background. And so keyword clustering helps us achieve topical authority in the eyes of a search engine. What does that mean? It means that we are going to write in a specific way so that a computer reading the words that we've written know that we know what we're talking about because of how we structure what we are talking about. Okay, so we are clustering our keywords, and it's going to help us, again, achieve topical authority and topical coverage, because it's going to help make sure that we're talking about everything in a way that a person that actually knew what they were talking about would talk about this thing. So we're going to tell it, write a keyword cluster, right? So cluster all these keywords together, and we'll look at what that output looks like in a second. For the main topic, and then we just input here what our chat message was. So this is going all the way back to the chat message that we sent in, plants that grow in Colorado, and boom, it's pulling it in. And then we're telling it, hey, there's going to be this list below at the bottom. This should be an XML formatted keyword list as inspiration. Okay, so we're going to provide it all these different keywords that we've now been scraping. So the keyword cluster is intended to form the basis for an article around this topic and must therefore include a broad, versatile list of topics in order to cover the main topic completely, right? So we're saying like, hey, we want to be an authority on this, which means you can't leave any stones unturned, basically is what we're saying. And so we need to not repeat the word over and over and over again, but again, we want to build like a topical breadth on this specific subject. So then we go through and we give it some more specific instructions. We want to group and rewrite words so that they make sense together. Basically what we're saying. Only include 100 keywords in the cluster. We don't want to load this thing up with too many keywords. So basically giving it the structure, and then again, we give it an example. This is something I think too many people miss. If you want any language model to give you a good output, tell it what you consider a good output. A little pro tip there. And so that's what we're doing here. So we're saying, hey, this is an example, okay? Now, when we see in here 1 to 2 times, we're telling it how many times we want it to reply or how many times we want it to use that keyword. So for example, if we were writing for the topic, is coffee good for you? This exact term, is coffee good for you, should be there 1 to 2 times. Naturally, if we're writing an article about coffee, the word coffee is going to be there 10 plus. And then there's these other words that might show up, right? Like decaf, what the World Health Organization says, maybe how it's related to Parkinson's. I don't know, all that type of stuff. And then we come down here and we give it that keyword list. So all of those other nodes that we were just going out and hitting, keywords for keywords, related keywords, suggested keywords, all of that type of stuff, we're pulling it in and we're passing it to them. The thing that I think is really cool, by the way, about N8N is when we come over here, when we're in this like expanded editor, we can see what it is plugging in here. Pretty cool. And so when we come down here, we can say, here's what people also asked. Here are the keyword suggestions it gave. Here are the related keywords it gave. And then here are the other keywords for keywords that it gave. So pretty big list, okay? It sends that out, and then the large language model returns us a response with how many times each of these words should be in there, basically, right? So low maintenance plants, perennials, shade loving plants, right? And all of the different variants of how often that should be in the system. Okay, so it's going through, and again, it is clustering all the keywords. Now, what we do is we move on to the next node. So we have all those keywords and how many times they should be there. Now, the next piece we want to perform is we want to say, cool, well, I want you to make sure that you really understand what this article should accomplish. And so we tell it, you're an SEO expert. I want you to tell me what you think the intent and content expectations are for this article. And I want you to format it like this: search intent, content expectations. Okay. Now, if we look at what the output is, again, remember the article title was plants that grow in Colorado. What's the search intent? Users are seeking information on plant species that are suitable for Colorado's specific climate and growing conditions, typically for gardening, landscaping, or ecological purposes. Expectations: comprehensive list of plants that thrive in Colorado, including details on climate compatibility, soil and sunlight, hardiness, maintenance tips, blah, 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 blah. So this is one area where you have two options. Option one is you dump this. So you break the process right here, right? You just say, hey, we're going to stop right here. You pump it out to a tool like Airtable, where you can actually look at the data and you have like a human in the loop. So a human looks at it and says, does this search intent actually match what it should be? Like, is the system understanding based on the keywords that I've given it what this article should be about? Am I comfortable writing an article on this topic at this point? So you can do that one with a human. You could also use like an actual agent that evaluates the output, and you could do like an evaluator optimizer kind of workflow is an option too. Human in loop is probably gonna be easier though out of the gate for people. And so it comes through, and now it has all of these keywords and how many times they should be there on the page. And then it has the search intent for the article, okay? Then what it does is it goes through once another brief little JavaScript to pull the URLs of the articles that are showing in the SERP responses, right? So all of those top results that we had, it goes through and it pulls them out. So these are all of the people that are basically ranking on the top, 1.5 pages in Google when someone searches this. So we have them all right here. Okay. So now if we go back, we say, all right, we have this function for splitting it out. And so what we're doing is we're taking this, one item giant list of URLs, and we are outputting it into individual items. Okay. So once we have them as individual items, we can loop through each one of them. That's another thing that's pretty cool about N8N, by the way, compared with a tool like Make, is that they have like a default option to process batched items. So for example, if you have a list of 16, if you were in Make, you would have to run like an iterator to iterate over all of those items. Whereas in N8N, it does it by default. So it knows that you have 16 items and it's going to run your request or whatever you do for all of those. So now what we're doing is we are going and we're making a request for it to go pull each of those pages. So it's actually going out. You can think of this like a scraping functionality where it is going out for each of those articles that we gave it, and it is scraping them. That's basically what these two steps are doing. It's scraping those articles. And again, if you want to go look at the endpoint, you can. This is the raw HTML endpoint. And so what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, go download that page, basically. Go look at the page. And then we're saying, now go pull the actual HTML on the page. And so that's why we give it this ID field down here, because it's generating a background process, right? So in this one where we sent it the URL, it's processing that in the background, so it sends us an ID that we can check to see if it's done. And that's what we're just doing here. We're saying, hey, go give me that URL. Is it done yet? Okay. Then last but not least, we come through and we parse out that page. So we have this giant HTML page. We obviously don't want to just dump all of the content on the page, because depending on the amount of how big these pages are, if they're really big, the language model might not even be able to parse all of it, right? It could be hundreds of thousands of tokens. And so we come through, we tell it to pull all of the H1s, H2s, and H3s. That's what this code block is doing, pulling all the H1s, H2s, and H3s. And then we're just merging it all into a big list. And then last but not least, we go back out to our language model and we perform the final step. So final step, we are saying, hey, so we're getting ready to write an article for a topic that is, enter here, plants that grow in Colorado. The intent of the searcher, so remember we did this, is this. They're trying to seek information on blah, blah, blah. This is what they would expect out of the content. Below, you will find the top SERP results headings and link profiles, basically. Using that and the intent, build me an SEO outline for an article about plants that grow in Colorado. And we tell it to format it in Markdown. And this is what it gives us. So SEO outline for plants that grow in Colorado. This is what it's recommending as a title tag, meta description, discover the best plants for Colorado's unique climate landscape, blah, blah, blah. So now it's saying, hey, you should have an intro inside of your intro. Brief overview of growing plants in Colorado, importance of selecting, purpose of the guide. Now, here's the thing that I will say is I threw this version together to teach you guys on. There's obviously a lot that you could add into this system, right? So some things immediately, telling the system why you're an expert and what your unique perspective is on certain things, right? So for example, this is a local client that's a landscaper, telling the system, hey, it's a landscaper that's been in business for 20 years. They really know about this stuff. They've won all of these awards, right? And so giving a lot of context as to who the avatar is that's actually writing this is going to be super helpful. Another thing that we could do is come in here where it starts doing the outline and we give it more specific instructions. We give it examples of past outlines that we've considered to be good, right? Things that we know are a good site, for example, would be great to have in here. Also, we can make it so that it groups under each of these the keywords from the clustering exercise and how many times they actually need to be there on the page. What do I mean by that? If we were to go back here and open this up and come into this, we could say, make sure to structure under each section of your outline the main keywords from our keyword clustering exercise so that we know which sections they should go in. Here's the list. Okay, now we can come down here. And where did we have that? That was, boom, boom, boom. Right there, boom. So let's see how this changes the output. So I'm gonna pause this real quick and I'm gonna rerun this node and show you guys what it looks like. All right, so I just ran that one. And now we pop back in and see, now it's starting to give us the actual target keywords and where they would actually make the most sense, right? So for example, in the introduction, broader, kind of like semantically broader keywords would make more sense. So Colorado plants, gardening in Colorado, those broad terms would make more sense in an introduction. And then as we move into, for example, topics about Colorado's growing conditions and climate, things like tips and hardiness zones would semantically make sense to be in that section. And so again, another area where right here, we just prompted to say, hey, put the keywords in there so I know where to put them. But we can also include things such as like the number of times the keyword should be there and all of that. And so again, this is really just a baseline starting point, but again, really, really powerful. And you can see probably already, if this is something that's up your alley, a lot of areas for potentially improving things, adding on, and making your process ultimately better. But that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, in the next one, we are going to be going into how we can make this process more robust and take this keyword research output that we have and start turning it into actual content. So how we can have the systems write on our behalf, edit on our behalf, do research on our behalf, and so on. And again, it's going to be done from this perspective of how can we put some sort of human in the loop on this system so that it makes an output that's actually meaningful in some way, right? We don't want just mass content published out there that's stupid. And so we're going to hopefully avoid that. So I hope you found this video helpful. If there's any other tools that you would want to see me go into, if you had another scraping tool that was better or a SERP tool that was better or whatever it might be, and you'd like to see it integrated into a system like this, let me know and I can work on that in future videos.